Everybody wants to be rich, but almost nobody's willing to do what it actually takes. Here's the truth. Most of what you've been told about success, total garbage. Becoming wealthy isn't about saving $5 a day or waking up at 5 a.m. It's about doing the exact things most people are terrified to do. In this video, I'm breaking down the 5 rules that got me from broke to doing $10 million a year, but fair warning, these principles aren't easy. They will challenge everything you thought you knew about success. When it comes to success, you need to redefine what success means to you. I think a lot of times when we start our journeys to want to be successful or become successful, we haven't quite questioned the things that we're striving for. And it's one of these things that better late than never to basically sit down and just say like, hey, this is what I'm going for. These are my goals. Does that still align with what I want? Is there anything missing? Is there things that I should add in and I should also be aiming towards? Because listen, when it comes to success, you can't just define success as about being successful. You can't define success just monetarily. If you do, it's very hollow. I don't think it's very accurate either. I don't think when people say they want to be successful that they realize there are so many other areas of their life in addition to money that they want to also be successful in. Partially that's, social media. Social media is showing you the glitz and glamour of being successful. And so when you start out on your journey, it's very obvious that you might have picked that up and that's the thing that's motivating you. The reason I say you need to redefine it and that becomes kind of a concern is because you're going to get there, right? Like if you're a competent, hardworking person, there's more than enough information out there. You will become successful. And it can be a really rude awakening for some people. And I've certainly seen this happen in my peers and colleagues when they sort of realize or they come to that aha moment that success to them can't just be monetarily, right? They feel like something's missing. They achieved it and it's not how they wanted it to feel. It is not the actual life that they thought. And so they kind of go through this downturn of like area of like depression or desperation because they didn't realize that all these other things were also going to be important to them. You need to define your own metrics of what is success to you. To me, success is not only being financially sound, but it means being physically fit, having good relationships in my life, friendships and family. It means having a good amount of freedom where I don't feel like I'm tied to something, where I genuinely feel like I'm doing the things that I want to be doing. These are all really important areas, and I wouldn't consider myself successful if I didn't have significant improvement in all of those areas of my life over the last couple of years, not just financial. Because ultimately, listen, if you don't want to be rich and really fat, you don't want to be rich and have no good relationships in your life and no one to share with. Listen, this is just something that you should be aware of because in the beginning, yes, everybody's chasing the dollar, they're making money, but you're going to get there, right? A lot of young kids, you guys are going to be there in a few years. And mentally, if you're not ready and you're not just looking at your life and being like, this is what I'm striving for, this is what's going to be a stable, healthy life versus I just want to get rich as fuck. Listen, you're kind of headed towards disaster. And there's nothing saying that when you get to that point that you can't kind of pause and reevaluate. But when you get to that point, the reality is a lot of things are moving very fast. You're now responsible for more than you've ever been responsible for. Money is a tool, and that tool can be used for destruction as well, just as it can be used to build you up. And so I say is like an important thing that also just for the state of everyone and their own self-confidence and self-esteem, that people look at other people that are more successful online. And it's always been interesting to me how many people are discouraged by it versus encouraged by it. To me, I personally always looked at social media and I thought it's just great that that person is rich. Hopefully I can, have nice things and post like that one day myself if I work very hard. And I've never been discouraged by social media, but I know that a lot of people are. I hear the way they express and talk about other people. I hear the tone. I've heard them express that it's discouraging to them, that they need time off social media. Listen, you should be able to look at another person's life and not just compare it. I get that it's a little bit intuitive. We may do that subconsciously, but you shouldn't be turned off by other people's success. Compare yourself, sure, but you don't know really a lot of that person. You may only see one side, the side they choose to show on social media. And so can you really even make a comparison there? No, you really can't. Listen, guys, you don't just want the girl with big tits, right? You also want her to be very beautiful. You also want her to be sweet and loyal and funny and interested in you. And you also want her to have a nice figure and she's, all the other great benefits. You guys don't just want to be successful. It's not about just becoming successful. And I think this is where Andrew Tate's message kind of got a lot of traction is like, you don't just want to be successful. You also want to be fit. You also want to have that self-confidence that, you can be around other men and you're not just like, damn, I'm a little bit scared scared because people are yelling and I'm really weak and I could probably get my ass beat. You don't want to have to experience these things. That, to me, that feeling of, I can walk in the street at night and I have no problem handling myself because I'm physically fit and I know how to fight and I've trained myself and I'm aware. And there's a type of self-confidence that feels just as good as making money. All these things are just as important, because if you took them away and you just had money, you would still want them. So when you think about success, I really urge you to slow yourself down and say, yes, I want to make a certain amount of money and that certain amount of money will give me X, Y, Z. However, if I still need these things, other areas of my life, I still need to feel fulfilled. I still need to have relationships, still need to be physically fit. Write out all the metrics to you that would define success, right? Don't just picture yourself with money. Picture the full package. Use the character analogy. I think Andrew Tate kind of coined that, but just like think about yourself as a video game character. What are all the qualities and characteristics you would want to give yourself? What type of lifestyle would you want to live? How many hours do you want to work? All of those deep questions that really only you can answer for yourself. The next thing you need to do is you need to build unyielding discipline. You need to know how to sit down, focus yourself, commit to something, and see it through until you get the result that you started out desiring to get. This is why you started in the first place. Most of you don't have it. You guys have TikTok brain. The amount of people that tell me they can't read a book is fucking astonishing. If you can't sit down and read a book, you may not be able to accomplish a lot in your life, because you need to be able to focus and see something through to do something at a high level. I understand that if you're not trying to accomplish anything great, then don't stress yourself out. You don't have to sit there for months. You don't have to enter grind talk, right? You don't gotta lock in. But if you want to accomplish something great, that comes with it. It's a given. It's a non-negotiable. You may be the smartest and slickest person in the world. I guarantee that if you cannot commit to anything, you don't have the discipline to hold yourself true to what you're trying to do when it's uncomfortable, that you will not succeed at anything. There's a lot of things that help you be more disciplined. Discipline is a muscle. It must be worked in order for it to get better and grow. And so there's things that you can be doing that actually strengthen that mental muscle and keeps you committed to things. One of the things is your schedule. Create a schedule that optimizes you for flow state. And with that flow state, it'll be very easy for you to stay disciplined. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I like to say that you don't need a routine, but there's a good recipe is going to get it done. I think Alex Mosey has talked about it, but I think it's really great that people are getting away from such rigid routines, right? Because there's the capitalist and then there's the creative. And I talk about this in a lot of my videos, but the capitalist is the rigid routine version. He's very logical based. Everything needs to go in order. That way I know what's going to happen. And, therefore, if I know what's going to happen and I know what order, I can get everything done every single day. But there's also the creative in life, and you don't want to just have to run your head through everything in life and just beat it with sheer tenacity and that effort. And that's kind of what you end up with when you think very logically based, is you're simply, you're not looking at abstract, you're not challenging thoughts and opinions. And if you're not doing that, then you may never step out of the box and realize that you can just maneuver around it. And you need to flip between both parts of your brain when you're navigating life. Is this a situation where I need to get very routine based and logical and plan everything out? Or is this a point that I need to be a little more creative? I need to come up with some creative solutions. Or the creative side for me is a little bit harder to explain. If it's intuitive to you, it just comes naturally. Anything creative, if you're good at branding and marketing and coming up with new ideas and inventions, it's a tough thing sometimes to express, but sometimes that's what's necessary. That's what's going to be your next big idea that moves you forward. And that's going to be the thing that you're thinking outside the box. So now that you're offering what your competitors aren't offering, because you came up with that yourself. And so you need both sides of you. Listen, when it comes to your daily schedule and it comes to your routine, stay away from just rigid routines. I like recipes. Recipes kind of, to me, and this is simple form, but it's just there's a list of ingredients that need to be in there, but it doesn't matter which one's on top. We're going to mix it all together. It's going to taste good, right? I love living a recipe lifestyle where I know I need to work out. And I know on what days I need to be resting. I know on what days I'm lifting weights. I know on what days I'm boxing. I know on what days I'm going for a walk. I know what days I'm stretching. but I don't care when I do it. If I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I didn't sleep too good last night, I'm going back to bed, and then now my whole day is gonna be a little bit different. So then, you know what, maybe I get up and I go right to the office, and now I'm gonna work out at night. And so that's what kind of a recipe lifestyle is, very fluid. You know what needs to get done every day, but it just doesn't have to get done in order, because you wanna be able to respond to life and be able to benefit, to be flexible enough that when things pop up, to prioritize it right on the spot and get it done, and then just move whatever you're gonna do then to a different part of your day. Knowing how to do that sliding prioritization scale of your life and do that every day, it all starts with your schedule. Your schedule will allow for it. If you don't have a schedule that allows for that because you're always in meetings and going to this and then going to the next thing, then you're gonna miss opportunities. And we all know opportunities, they need to be jumped on. You need to go after and cultivate opportunities being brought to you. You need to go find them. And then when you find them, you need to jump in there. And so timing and speed is very important in that aspect. And so if you're living a very rigid routine lifestyle, you're not leaving a lot of that room for these like creative moments to happen that can really compel you forward. While this has to come back to discipline, because the things within your recipe need to be done every day. They're non-negotiables. You need to be fit and exercising. There's so many benefits of it. You need to get sunlight. There's so many benefits of it. You need to eat right. There's so many benefits of it. You need to be learning every single day. There's so many benefits of it. And so you need to have the discipline to just be like, I've verbalized that I want to be this person. I now need to make sure my actions meet it. Period. Exact. No, okay, but like a little bit, I'm kind of, yes, I'm trying to get into shape, but I'm kind of cheating. And it's like, I'm not saying take life too serious. I certainly don't. But if you do want to get something out of life, don't lie to yourself and say that you're going to do these things, but your actions don't match. You're really going to degrade your self-confidence. If you say you're going to do something, then just do it. You're going to feel, you're not only going to get what you wanted to get out of it, but you're going to feel great about yourself because you actually got what you wanted to get. You didn't have to lie to yourself. You didn't have to say, well, I really want to look like this, but I'm kind of going to settle for how I look. It's like, no, I wanted this. I didn't expect it to be easy. I knew I was going to have to work at it, and I got it. And you'll get that from discipline. When you are able to commit to something well past the discomfort, but you know that it's just part of a recipe. Things are going to happen. Look at the stock market. There's not one company that just goes left to right and increases every single day in price and never decreases. Everybody's going to have setbacks. This happens to the best companies in the world. And so it's just your ability to have the discipline to stay true to whatever you're trying to do through those setbacks. And that's how you become successful. You guys need to think differently. And this is, when I talk about the capitalist and the creative, I'm going to really lean on the creative side. Like, you need to think differently than other people. Everyone is like, okay, do a cold plunge because that builds discipline. You got to work hard. And then if you work hard and you do something, you're going to get far in life. But nobody really talks about like the art side of things where there's a huge creative component to it. You come up with one ad set that's really creative and out of the box and you get 20 million views and you make money like that. And so, there's the creative aspect to it that's very unconventional. When I say think differently, it's very hard to sell if you're selling the exact same thing at the exact same price of competitors, right? Then why would they choose you? You don't even have a reason. You need to think differently. You need to think out of the box. And so when it comes to interacting with customers, getting customer feedback is super important because it's going to allow you to come up with ideas and run with them that other people really wouldn't. But I want to talk about some things that I do to actually think more creatively so that I don't just end up in these periods where I'm just trying to run my head through a wall. This one's going to be controversial, but I smoke weed. I love smoking weed. It helps me to just challenge none of my thoughts. It just allows things to come to me. And if I do a good job of reading books, talking to smart people, consuming the right things, then that is all my brain really has to come up with ideas. And so if I'm not in this super logical state where I need to have all these reasons for things that I'm doing and I can just kind of think and just be like, okay, what ideas come to me, not me going after the idea, it allows me to do that. To each their own on whatever they want to use it for, or whether they don't want to use it, it's none of my business. It helps me and I enjoy it. Other things can be I would call them flow state activities. I played sports. I can only describe it through my experience playing sports. There was days when I played sports that I was a step ahead of every single person on the field. Nobody could guard me. I was scoring when I wanted to score. And if I wanted to go back out there and keep running, these people are not going to keep up. And I know what that feels like. And maybe you felt it for a split second, right? You were a step ahead of them. You were hitting the right moves. You didn't have to think hard. It just came to you. And that's flow state. When things just creatively come to you. So many people don't talk about this. It's widely more expressed in trading, and I learned it through trading, but not a lot of people talk about it in business. You need to feed that flow state, and there's things that take you out of flow state, there's things that push you into flow state. Having those things in your life, like sports or things that push you into flow state, for me it's boxing, is very, very important. Boxing is one of those things that when you're going and the motions and you're in it, you're in the moment 100%, you're not thinking about anything else, things are coming to you very effortlessly. Knowing what puts you into flow state, being very conscious of it, being very protective over it. It's a very fragile state. You could be in perfect flow state and go to lunch with a friend and they're just spewing on you, bitching, complaining, being a pussy, and then you're all of a sudden now you're feeling those emotions. Now you're not feeling so creative. Now that pep's not as aggressive because you're not feeling good, right? In business, we can be much more tolerant of risk when we're feeling good. We're in flow state because, it's like coping with laughing when you're working out, right? Or like you see those fighters in the middle of a fight and they start smiling and laughing. Yes, that's cope, but cope can be a tool. Like they're finding light in a very stressful moment. And when you can operate that way, and every day when stressful stuff comes at you and you can just operate with this lighthearted attitude and just kind of laugh through it, then you're going to get through that way easier, and you're going to be more recharged on the next thing, which is going to give you that momentum going into the next thing. And then it's just this pattern of building momentum. That's what flow state does for you. And so there's things that you can do that take you out of it, which can be, being with a friend that doesn't have a good attitude or small mind, being with people that shoot down your ideas, doing aimless tasks that you could easily outsource, and so you just do it and it stresses you out. There's a lot of things that take you out of flow state. It's very, very important to maintain that. When you can maintain flow state, you're going to be thinking a lot different. You're very creative. When you have that confidence and that good feeling in you, you're not going to doubt your ideas as they come. You're going to attack them and be like, yeah, it's a great idea. Let's do it. We'll go right for it. And that's kind of flow state. And trading is a little bit easier to understand than business, I suppose, because when you're in flow state trading, you just boom, click the keyboard. Yep, that was the top. Sell it at the bottom. Oh, bounce right after that shit. Okay. But like I wasn't thinking about what does this trade mean to me. I wasn't thinking about, what does this next client mean to me? What am I going to buy if I sign this client? Or how can I upgrade my lifestyle? No, I'm in here. I'm in the moment where my feet are. And that's flow state, and you're just making the right decisions. Listen, the next thing you need to do if you want to be successful is you need to invest in yourself. I think it was one of the first books that I picked up. I think it was Atomic Habits. I remember like going through this, I'd just been kicked out of school. I was going through this like storm of thoughts, and I was just like, all right, how do I become successful? Well, I got to learn what successful people do. Well, all right, well, it's going to take me a while to learn the business. And then I was like, oh, but I can learn what they do every day that helps them be successful. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to have a business tomorrow that I can work on, but I can work on myself right now. Later on, I forget who said the quote, but it was basically when you don't know what to work on yourself. In the beginning, I was drawn to what I could do. And what I could do is I could start working on myself today. And this is where you need to be investing in yourself. You cannot look at investing in yourself and be like, I'm going to set a budget for that, or I don't know, I'm not going to spend money on that this month. No. You're competing against people that are not afraid to invest in themselves on a daily basis. My budget for investing in myself is fucking huge. It's necessary. It keeps me ahead of everybody, keeps me evolving, keeps me learning, keeps me increasing in value. It's like saying, okay, I'm just going to market this month for my business, but the other 11 months, I'm just going to save costs, run off the last customers, and I'm not going to market anymore. Oh, okay, well, you're not going to grow. Wouldn't you want to make a little bit less each month so that you can continuously make more over your lifetime? And so you need to be investing in yourself. How does it look? What can you do? How it looks is you need to be focusing on health. You need to be focusing on your skill set, and you need to be focusing on yourself, right? Your habits. I think there's a book called Brainwash, but it basically talks about health and consumption is simply not just what you put in your mouth. It is all the little things that you consume and expose yourself to on a daily basis. And you would be so surprised how many of these things affect whether you can focus, or whether you can regulate your mood, whether you can sleep at night, whether you can tolerate stress without breaking down. How healthy your body is going to allow you to operate at a higher level. You simply can't just be like, oh, I'm never going to stretch, recover, or train, but I'm going to walk on a basketball court and be Michael Jordan. No, there's obviously an investment component to it that if you are striving to operate at that level, that you will have to make. you will have to focus on your health. You can't be foggy brained and hungover, eating a bunch of shitty foods, you got IBS all day, and think that you're gonna outwork somebody that knows all the benefits of fasting and when to eat and when to consume carbs and when not to consume carbs, and sit there and think that you're gonna outwork me. There's no way, right? If it comes down to that variable alone, then I win, right? Health is a huge component, and it's not just in that everyone needs to be jacked and have a six-pack. No, health goes far beyond that. There's also the learning aspect, right? You need to constantly be investing in learning. How that looks for me, I love a walk out in the sun and a podcast. You're getting sunlight, you're getting daily cardio, and you're getting a podcast in. I've ran that for years. It's a great medium for me. You just get to walk. You're not thinking about anything. You go into flow state very easily. And so I always do that and listen to podcasts, right? So I'm investing, obviously there's no financial investment there, but I invest a portion of my time every single day to doing that. Other things you can do is book reading. Listen, I like that book reading is a slower pace. It is making you focus. It is literally strengthening your ability to sit there and critically think. You need that skill. I understand everyone's in Miami slanging Lambos, making trades, boom, 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 and everything looks easy. But listen, you need to be able to sit there and focus and solve problems. If you cannot, you're gonna get passed by the people that can. So I love reading books. I love a morning, little bit of coffee, sit down, read for an hour. Reading for me too, it's pointless if you're not interested in learning. So if you have no desire to learn, if you haven't understood why learning is important to you, then you're never gonna be able to read. I got to a point in my life that I realized I wanted to learn. I wanted to do better for myself. And all of a sudden, reading became super easy to me. Do it when you wanna learn. If you, in the middle of the day, you're like, I got that really good book, I'm kind of struggling with this in my business, I'm just going to read a chapter. And you need to be consuming this stuff. This stuff is going to make you think better. The last level above reading books is going to be mentorship. Actually, I'll do 2 levels above. Mentorship, so you're paying people for their time to be exposed to systems, tricks of the trade, their network, whatever it is of value you're purchasing from them. Mentorships are great. Closes that gap. You're paying them for what they know. They're giving you exposure. You're getting there faster. There's a value in that. And it's an even exchange. Sometimes it's an uneven exchange, but if you don't really want to sit down and learn something, it makes sense to pay them, move faster. That's an investment. It's an investment where you live. Where you live is super important because that is your exposure every single day. It is the most important. Who's around you, where you live in the country, what city you live in. This is super, super important, whether you live around family or not. And so this is an area where you may need to move away, and moving away is, maybe it's not, leave your hometown, bro, because you're not thinking big enough. Reality is you need to transcend all of your environments, right? So you should never be at the level of your environment. So you may throw yourself in a big fish tank and eventually grow to it. But if you were gonna grow, the fish tank should have never held you back. I could have stayed in Connecticut, maybe I wouldn't have been as happy, I wouldn't have grown as fast, but I would have grown huge and I would have stayed right where I was because internally that's what's happened. So it doesn't really matter about the external. The external just fucking helps, right? You can run without running shoes, but running shoes fucking help, right? Moving to a place where there's a lot of entrepreneurs around you, where there's a lot of benefit, there's a lot of networking, there's a lot of shared ideas, there's a lot of support, there's a lot of understanding. That is super fucking important, and it's very important to your health and your mindset more than anything. Environment is super, super key. You want to be around people that are going to add value. You want to be around people that are really growing. I think it's very difficult to grow around people that aren't growing, right? Because you feel lost in space versus everyone's growing. And okay, well, what? He just bought a crib. All right, so maybe it's not that crazy. He was where I was at a few years ago. He just copped a $3 million crib. That's not a crazy idea. I got to think about that. I got to think where my business can grow because people are doing that. His business grew. So you're going to have to look for areas of your life that you can constantly invest in that you're going to get a better return. The best part about it is never feel like it's lost money, because investing in yourself is the most important thing that you can do. They can never take that away from you. Your industry can go away. Your offer can expire or get, it gets too many competitors. It's saturated. All these things can happen to you in business and probably will. But the one thing that doesn't change is your skill set, how you operate. If you're the type of person that is very disciplined and you're always learning and you're healthy and you have a great network and you have people you can lean on, nothing's gonna touch you. Like you're gonna survive anything because you're built that way. And so you get that way, you get to that final form through investing in yourself. And it's a huge investment. Let me not make this seem like it's 2K into a mentorship and you're fixed. No, this is a percentage of the money that you're gonna have coming in for the rest of your life needs to be thrown in this bucket. You need to invest in this. You will get the rewards from it. Like any investment, if you're patient and you did your due diligence, you will get plenty of rewards from it. You need to take big risks. This was so hard for me. It's still hard for me, although I feel like I'm finally opening up to it, but this was extremely difficult for me to get over. Taking big risks was not something that I grew up around, wasn't something that you really hear about. Usually people that don't take big risks, they kind of stay with the community, and then that community kind of points fingers. Oh, he's doing something super different. Sometimes it can be misunderstood, the tone or why people are really talking about it, but they do talk about it. They're absolutely talking about the person that ventures off from the herd and does something very different. Why taking risks is so important? Because you will not gain anything without sacrifice. If you don't think that you're gonna have to do something very different than your current environment in order to get something very different than you're currently at, you're crazy, okay? Like Einstein says, people that do the same things expecting a different outcome are insane or crazy. It's the same for your life. You can't just say, well, I'm just gonna throw a little money in Bitcoin and maybe it does go to 2 million and I don't have to work. Let's take a little more strategic approach, brother. Like we're not trying to get rich, 1 in 1,000's chance. Like I want to get rich for sure, for certain. I want to know. I don't even care how long it's going to take. I just want to know that I'm going to get rich. I don't really want to die poor. And so you're going to have to take risks. How do these risks look? This is another thing that I don't think the capital side or the very logical side of your brain is going to be able to really get you to understand, because you're always going to think, okay, what is my reward? Is it 1 to 3 or 1 to 5? Well, if it's 1 to 5, I can take 5 risks and 1 out of 5 just has to work and it'll all pay for itself. Like, holy fucking shit, bro. If the best you can come up with is a mathematical equation to how you want to live your life and the moves you're going to make, you're going to get beat out by the hustlers. This is why I love the informal side of business. The people tatted up that don't look like anybody you would see go to an Ivy League school that are just schooling people in business. And it comes from our ability to take risks. And you know what? There's no formula for it. I can't even teach you how to do it. I don't know. I don't know what moves you need to make. That's where hustlers are ahead of so many people and they're crushing digital business right now, is because they know that they're not going to know and they'll just figure it out. I'm going to jump in this because it sounds like a good idea. I got that little tingle in my balls and I know I'm about to make some money, so I'm going to go after it. So I'm going to go meet that guy even though I didn't want to travel this weekend. I'm going to go have dinner here. I'm going to go network with this person. I'm going to, hire this person. I'm going to invest in this business. I'm going to invest in this asset. Listen, I can't tell you how to do it. There's no formula to it, but you need to take risks. Risking something, whether that's time or money, to get something greater. And sometimes you lose. The problem is people are just like, okay, you know what? I'm comfortable with this whole I work for money shit. I'm cool there. I'll just keep working for money. Money will come in. I'll get smarter. I'll make more money. But I'm risking. Do I want to throw a little money into this? Am I having to learn about this? Should I start another business if I already have a good business? Don't be a fucking pussy. You need to take risks. Okay, risks are the stories. They're the shit worth living. You know the story that nobody fucking cares about is the guy that stays at a job for 60 years and does a good job, and every year he just does a little bit better to impress the boss and get a bonus. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that at all. I think that's a phenomenal career. Just think nobody gives a shit if you tried to tell that story at a party. So if you want to live a life that is worthwhile to even talk about without boring everyone to death, put on some fucking risk, brother. Put on some risk. There's only going to be good stories and stuff to talk about, and huge monumental gains are going to get that blood rushing again when you take risk. Risk is where your life is actually lived. And I really think some people just like, and myself included, I was not good at risk. It's something that I learned from a lot of the people that I had around me, and I learned through trading to get comfortable with risk. You're going to have to put out a lot of money. But you know what the best part about risk is? In the back of your mind, the silver lining or the thing you're gonna fall back on is that who gives a fuck if it works or not? You still didn't have the balls to do it, but I did. People don't have the balls to move to Puerto Rico and learn Spanish and be in a different environment and have to completely run away from every comfort there is in Miami to build a gangster ass lifestyle in Puerto Rico, found a bunch of other people that don't want to pay taxes because they know that's a tool that they can use to further their careers or improve their family or do good for themselves, so they think it's a worthwhile trade. You're gonna have to take risks. You're gonna have to go for things. Nobody likes the safe person. The safe person is maybe good for stability. Maybe you need a safe doctor. Maybe you want maybe as like a man that's taken a lot of risk in business and life, maybe you want a safe partner. You want to feel someone, but as a man, you don't need to feel safe. As a 20-year-old man, you definitely shouldn't feel safe. You should feel like, damn, I'm really striving for something and I'm taking big and bold risks, and some of them are not working out, but I'm learning a lot. You know who doesn't learn? The person that stands on the fucking sideline. You know who sucks at basketball? The referees, which I don't even know if it's true, but the point is, like, if you're not on the court dribbling the ball, making the moves, then you are not going to understand the people that are, and you are not going to learn what they are learning. You learn through doing, you learn through experiencing. I learned this in a book, and it was such a big aha moment for me. It says that when your emotions are the most elevated is what's easiest for you to remember, and is usually what you remember. Example, we all remember our traumas. We remember our traumas because they were extremely high elevated emotions, and that kind of stamped its way into the memory in our brain. When you stay in that safe category where you're not taking big, bold risks, you actually stop learning as much, because you're not going to remember everything throughout your entire life. You need to remember really important lessons, and you're only going to remember really important lessons when there's some skin in the game, there's something on the line that you really could lose, and you're 100% focused. And so listen, you have to take risks. I've done it. Take risks, start that company. If it fails, fuck it. If you knew that you kind of should have and you kind of was going to fail and you still started it, I still think that's better, because at least you did something. You have to create occurrences for good things to happen. I learned this in trading. The feeling and the confidence you will get from taking risk is also maybe the biggest point of the reward. It is that you now realize that you can put some skin in the game, that you can put your neck out and you can get the job done. And that type of confidence is the confidence that you need to do the next one and the next one and the next one. So who cares how many times you fail? Everyone already expects you to fail. But when you do hit, and when you do build confidence, you have a good trade, you build a good business, you learn how to make more money, you progress, and you feel that, you are going to create unshakable confidence. And that confidence is what's going to lead you to take on the next risk and the next one and a bigger risk and a more outrageous risk. You need that, because those risks is what drives society forward. That's what the whole game is about, is genuinely, where can I build a company that can actually provide value to a certain set of people? How do I fill that gap in the space? That's the true entrepreneurial spirit, is that you actually want to solve problems in the space, but you can't do that without taking on the risk. And because nobody wants to openly take on risk to provide value to other people, nobody wants to solve that equation, is why the reward is so big. And that is why a lot of us go to entrepreneurship, because it's this big thing, it's a big risk that most people try and it never works out, but it's where we can go to test our skills and kind of commit to doing something great. If that resonates with you, it's probably why you're watching this video. That is my 5 principles on how to get rich.